Rome, February 17th, 1600, Campo de Fiori. He stood there, resolute, bound to the stake. The early morning mist curled at his feet like a whisper rising from the earth itself. A hush blanketed the crowd. Dominican friars chanted prayers to a God they believed demanded this sacrifice. And then flames began to creep around the wood beneath him. But as the fire climbed, he didn't scream. He didn't cry out. Giordano Bruno didn't plead for mercy. He didn't beg for forgiveness. And no one ever recorded his final words. But that silence still echoes through time. Why did the church fear him so deeply? What kind of ideas could be so dangerous that they demanded death by fire? Tonight, on Hallowed Secrets, we open the book on a man whose mind may have seen the universe more clearly than those who condemned him could ever imagine. Giordano Bruno wasn't always an enemy of the church. Born in 1548 in the Kingdom of Naples, he joined a Dominican monastery at just 15. His mind? Sharp, restless, hungry, relentless. Even as a young friar, he questioned too much, and not just idle wondering, dangerous questions. He didn't merely study Aristotle and Aquinas, he interrogated their ideas. He didn't just glance at forbidden texts, he devoured them. He wasn't just a faithful servant of doctrine, he was a relentless seeker of truth. He threw himself into the ideas of Copernicus, Lucretius, Hermes Trismegistus. He practiced memory arts, dabbled in mystical philosophy, and gazed into the heavens. And he said boldly that the universe was infinite, that stars were not just lights in the sky, but suns far off and distant, that there might be other worlds, other beings, other truths. Today, we hear that and think science, discovery, curiosity. But to the Roman Inquisition, it was blasphemy. In 1576, word of heresy started to swirl, and Bruno fled Naples. For the next 15 years, he wandered Europe, a scholar with no home, a fugitive mind. He debated in Geneva, lectured in Paris, taught in Oxford, and everywhere he went, two things followed: awe and animosity. Because Bruno wasn't just intelligent, he was magnetic, audacious, fearless, a man who called theologians fools and scholars cowards. He spoke ideas so radical, even the Protestant reformers turned their backs. And once he said this: God is boundless, the universe is boundless, thus the universe reflects the divine. To some, those were sacred words, to others, absolute heresy. In 1591, a wealthy Venetian nobleman, Giovanni Mocenigo, invited Bruno to teach him philosophy and the art of memory. Bruno accepted. But Mocenigo, he grew afraid of what Bruno believed, afraid of how he spoke, afraid of what he might inspire. So one night, that nobleman betrayed him, turned him in. Bruno was arrested, dragged to Rome, and handed over to the Inquisition. What followed wasn't a trial. It was a slow destruction of the soul, interrogations, isolation, torture, demand after demand to recant, retract, and renounce. But Bruno never broke. For 7 long years, he rotted in the dungeons beneath the Vatican. 7 years of priests circling like vultures, waiting for a crack, a weakness, a collapse. But he refused. The charges against him, they were many. That the universe was infinite, that Christ was not divine, that the soul migrated, reincarnated, that sacred texts were misread, that all religions, yes, all, were human creations. But underneath all that, what they really feared was the idea of him, a mind unbound, a soul unafraid, a man who dared to look at God, not through stained glass, but through the stars. Then came the verdict, February 8th, 1600, death by fire, not for crimes of the flesh, but for crimes of the mind. 9 days later, dawn. They marched him to Campo de Fiori, a square in the heart of Rome. They bound his tongue so he couldn't speak. They tied his body to the stake, and the flames began to rise. The crowd looked on. Some wept, some prayed, some watched silently. But Bruno never faltered. Some say he locked eyes with his judges as the flames consumed him. Others whisper his last words were, "You, my judges, may fear this sentence more than I fear receiving it." We don't know for sure, but one truth remains. The church killed the man, but they could never kill the idea. His writings lived on, quietly, secretly, passed from hand to hand across Europe, inspiring minds like Kepler, Galileo, Newton, even centuries later, Einstein. His belief in infinite worlds? Now, it's a pillar of astronomy. His challenge to religious authority? A torch passed to freethinkers across generations. In 1889, almost 300 years later, a statue was raised in Campo de Fiori, right where he burned. Bruno stands there still, cloaked in shadow, hooded, eyes fixed, not at the sky, but directly at the Vatican. A silent rebuke, a monument not to heresy, but to the unshakable pursuit of truth. His story? It's a warning and a promise. That truth will always meet resistance, that light threatens those who live in darkness, and that the greatest sin is to think freely. So next time you look up at the stars, remember, you don't see them because they're close. You see them because one man burned so that you could look skyward without fear. This was Hallowed Secrets. Subscribe for more untold stories, hidden truths, and the histories they tried to bury. We speak for those silenced. We honor those forgotten. Until next time, stay curious, keep questioning.